Yeah, so welcome, gentlemen, to our third 2022 St. Paul's Speakers Series. And today our guest speaker is Mr. Stephen Mushanga, Penta 88. And he's going to be talking to us about implementation of the Constituency Development Funds, especially with the new paradigm where they increased the amount of money, and also they made community committees to be more important in distribution, selection and identification of projects, and distribution of funds and so forth. So Mr. Mushanga is an expert, having worked in local government for many years, apart from insurance and all the other things that he does. So he's very passionate about this topic, and is going to share with us for the next 30 minutes. So Mr. Mushanga, please take it away.
Thanks so much. Local government is actually a subset of the central government. That's where we are talking of centralizing government, central government to local authorities. In Zambia, we have a decentralization policy which was put together a long time ago, but it hasn't been implemented. But we've been hearing politicians talking about it every day, but the implementation hasn't come through. However, between 2017 and 2018, the late Secretary of Cabinet, Dr. Roland Chiska, rolled out this policy, and Chiwombo District Council, Chongwe, about 3 councils, were chosen to be a pilot project for decentralization policy. But somehow it just died down. I remember us attending a decentralization policy lunch at Chiwombo Town Council. All those big winners from central government attended, but it's not to be seen up to today. It can't be implemented. What it means is that all government departments in the district, in the decentralized policy, are supposed to be reporting to what we would call a responsible manager at the local authority, meaning either the mayor or the council secretary in any setting. If it's in Lusaka, the town clerk. If it's in Lusaka, it's town clerk. In a town council is a council secretary. So you have a director at the agriculture, a director at education. The director should be reporting to this responsible person. And then only security wings, like intelligence, will remain under the president, whose representative is the district commissioner in the district level. So those 2 departments and maybe the army, they report to district commissioner for security reasons, direct the president. So all these other departments of government are supposed to be reporting to the responsible manager at the local authority. That's how it was designed, but it hasn't moved to that level. But of late, anyway, we are practicing it. We are having these departments reporting to the council. Council meaning the elected officials, who are the board members of a local authority. So if the council sits, that's when all these responsible officers from departments come to report the activities of every 3 months to the council, which is a board of a local authority in any setting. So the council operates in this manner. It operates under the issue of committees. We have committees in the council. These board members are divided in committees. So each committee, like say, a committee for accounts and human resources, a committee for agriculture, a committee for audit, a committee for education, just like that. These board members are separated in committees, and they have this calendar in the year, which makes them say from January to March. between January and March, when they're supposed to have a full council now, these committees reporting their activities for 3 months to the board, which is a council. Now, the composition of these committees are councillors are appointed to these committees who are the board members. And then we have in these committees specialized officers from these government departments. Like in agriculture, we have a DAC or a district officer in this committee and their staff. In the education, you have the director or the DEBs who've been this. So they report the activities of those departments to the committee of the council. So after 3 months, all these councils sit. Then now their reports are now brought to the board, who is the council. So each committee, the chairperson is a councillor who is a board member who comes to report now to the council at that particular time. So when all these reports are now submitted and approved by the full council, it now becomes, those are called now resolutions to be followed by the local authorities. And also the implementation of the same policies and resolutions which were done in committees are now approved and made to be implemented. That's how the council works. So now, in the issue of CDF, this is now comes in funds from central government, which CDF was meant to uplift people's living standards almost instantly. That's what is meant by CDF. Of course, government has its overall responsibility on all districts across the country, but CDF per constituency was meant to alleviate poverty and even same levels of where government may not be seen to be doing, but they themselves, the citizens, should be able to say, oh, this man, I think it can work, whether it will work for us. That's how it was meant for. Therefore, when now it comes to the council is the one which has the responsibility to keep that money, no other person, the local authority. The director of finance at the local authority is the one who does the opening of the account. For Kembe constituency account, it's opened. It's there opened at Zambia Bank. Then the Katuba CDF account is opened at Zanapo. But to open these accounts, it's not an individual director to choose. You write a letter of request to the secretary, to the treasury, or the permanent secretary, Minister of Finance, to ask for permission to move this money to this particular place. It's not an express thing. You have to have for permission. So we even receive these permissions that, oh, the director asked for permission to open an account at this particular bank. So there is transparency. So then the authority to come from whoever is asked, the accountant general, the Minister of Finance, or Secretary of Treasury. There is that authority, the local authority, to open these accounts where CDF will sit. When that money now sits, the signatory of this account, first, that's supposed to be four. First, the director of finance and the council secretary. Then you are talking of the chairman of CDF committee, maybe per constituency, and maybe the treasurer. Four. So these are the signatories of this account. So now, how is implemented is that the projects are identified by the locals themselves in zones. What I mean by zones are these places where we vote for. So like in where I was, like Chibombo Ward, we have about 6 zones. So the ward development committees are represented in these zones. So if me, I come from a particular zone, some Karachi zone, don't there. We'll have elections there to choose maybe 2 people to sit on the WDC committee. But the representing that zone, we elect those 2. Each zone you elect 2, but of late I've realized that we are now electing 1 per zone. So now when those are elected, they form what we call a ward development committee. So when now you are requested to submit projects, so first the zone, those representing the zone, they will convene meetings in that particular area oh, in this zone, jointly now, what did we want? So those people will list according to scale of preference. This is the best thing. If we have one quarter, which is the first thing we're going to do, they will list those. Then each one will come, and then this WDC committee will sit at the central place. All these men will bring their projects. Of course, the councillor is an ex officio in this committee. He is an observer, like listening and maybe giving guidance on certain issues. He will sit in that committee and listen to the chairman, the secretary, everyone else deliberating on their projects and whatever. When he finally now the final list is given for the whole ward, it is sent to the CDF committee. Also, the CDF committee comprises of the MP. The MP will choose one councillor amongst those councillors in a particular constituency to his side, to her side or his side. Then the whole councillor, they elect two of them. So we find that on that CDF committee of the three councillors, one appointed by the MP and two elected by their fellow councillors. Then the MP will also again appoint a church first word based member. Even this disabled, they will be appointed by the MP, and so forth and so forth. Other specialized members are the Director of Finance, Director of Planning, Director of Engineering. They will sit in that committee. But the MP, Director of Finance, all those are not expected to be elected chairperson of this CDF committee. Only those other members who are co-opted in that committee will choose a chairman among themselves, the CDF committee chairperson. So this committee now will receive these projects from various wards and then deliberate them and say, oh, if like in Kembe we have 13 wards, and in 13 wards you have 25, okay, we remove these empowerment funds, we remain with 15 points, something somewhere there. They say we have 15 something. We divide that 13 into 15 million. If you see how much per ward is available. Now you come to the projects and see how best that available amount per ward is going to fit in per zone. Starting from the ward development committee. I don't know how they did that. Then it comes there, they will also deliberate. No, this and that should be. Now, in this circumstance, that's why the councillors elect two. The MP has one councillor on her side. So now, these councillors will rub through their colleagues that I want these projects in this particular year to finish. That is the robbing which comes there, and then everything. When they are approved in the CDO committee, that report is done. The secretary of that committee is a director of works. That's a secretary. So put all those projects properly in a report and bring it in the committee. There's that committee of engineering. Remember, I talked about the committee at first, those committees which report to the council. So in that committee of engineering, that secretary will report it there. Then now it will come to the council. When it comes there, everyone else will be there, all the councillors, the directors of these departments, it will be discussed. Okay, and then everything approved. If the council approves that report, now we wait for that the minutes to be done, and the minutes are sent to the minister to approve those projects. So after the minister has approved and there are no alterations, then it means they're supposed to implement. Now, at the time of implementation, that's where the problem of this increased CDF comes in. But there may be in Chibombo Town Council, you have only two procurement officers. Now, looking at the size of the monies, I don't know how long we're going to finish procuring. You find that you are supposed to do do a tender, whatever. So now that's why now we are asking that decentralizing policy where we expected that now we improve all these procurement officers in the local government offices, maybe having 20 or 50, let them go into the districts, become directors, and then employ a few qualified employees. Let them, now, you even say, okay, these 2 or 4 will procure for Katuba constituency in Chomo district. Then these 5 also procure for Kembe constituency. And then amongst those 5 again, those programs, they can also say this one is for infrastructure, this one is for materials, so that the works are easily done and implemented within a year. Because you find that these projects overflow. Find that if I will tell you about this year, that maybe this is the time they're supposed to approve the CDF committee projects in March this year, this March, because that's when we have full council. So maybe the CDF was come also on the account. Then it's when the procurement officers will start doing the procurement processes. So find that by the time you start building a school, it is rainy season, it will overflow into another year. So that's why we needed to have now the procurement process, even the monitoring and the evaluation should be, those 2 departments should be improved, looking at the increased CDF. That is a request maybe, which everyone is giving, that those 2 departments should be increased. Otherwise, all other departments, they just move well. Now we are looking at the procurement processes. That's where we are asking, maybe the government should improve on that. That's all. Sure, unless there are any other question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mushanga. That's a very detailed process you've outlined there. So my first question is, given the supply chain of things, you can't buy everything from one hardware store, say if you're building a school, for example. How do the procurement officers actually work? Do they work with contractors or with, who's doing the BOQs and things like that?
Yeah, that's why we're talking of the director of works and the director of planning, director of finance. These are represented in the CDF committee. And when we are talking of doing a BOQ, it is done by the director of works and their subordinates. Yeah, so when there is a project to do with building, they'll do a BOQ, they will visit the site, they will see what is required, they do the BOQ and then give it to procurement. Then procurement will now ask the public to submit their bids. And then there is a committee, what we call procurement committee, which will sit to evaluate those bids and they choose who's the appropriate person to undertake that project. That's done. And now, if it is on materials, say we're saying we're going to a hardware, of course, what we have seen is that the same procurement officers will go around the cities, look for quotations. Also, that is another process, going shopping and trying to find out, or they will ask, they will do simplified bids for those who are registered to supply materials to the local authorities. They will be requested to submit bids for simplified to supply materials. That's what they do, and then whoever looks like who gives a good price, they proceed to procure. Yeah.
Gentlemen, please ask Mr. Mushanga some questions. I have one more before somebody else jumps in, Mr. Mushanga. One of the biggest publicity things that happened with CDF was free education, and WDC is to be choosing vulnerable children to sponsor. How does that work?
Okay, no, it has been there even before this increase. CDF, we've been doing that. What usually happens is that there are vulnerable people around these communities too, very much actually. We've been taking people to colleges, and I remember in the last 2 years, there's a gentleman who did his degree in education, and he even came to thank the council for their tremendous work for they did on him. He's a teacher around this area now. What it is now, it's being moved into a way that there are no favoritism to say no, unless you are known by someone. So what it is that the committees, the social welfare has got what we call CWACs. They elect people in the communities to identify vulnerable groupings in those communities. In the same manner I said in the zones, they put people, elect their people, they find that the headman, the councillor, even those people who have served on that committee twice or once are not allowed to perform or whatever those activities. Of course, they identify or well, that intelligent young boy or young girl, but the families where it's coming from, they are not worthy to support that person. So those CWACs, together with the white women committees, they identify these people. There's a committee now, which is encompassing even secondary schools. There are committees in there. Mind you, even secondary schools, there are also people who don't want to come out in the open. And that they would come to a secondary school, they pay in the first term. The progressive terms of that they are defaulting and whatever. So there are committees in the schools to identify these children. They would call them, what is the problem? They would come open up and say, no, this is a new teacher, my parents are like this or like that. So those are also identified through the school system. So there's it's a comprehensive system where the school also has something to identify. Also the community will identify. So when all this identification is done, now there is that form you have seen where everyone will fill in, and then a central committee will sit and evaluate. Maybe even go and visit these places on the hands-on to see exactly what has been written, whether it's correct. And then they give you out those funds which have been allocated.
More questions from Mr. Mushanga?
Umba, can you ask a question?
Onward is going to ask. You just give him time.
Hi, I have one question. Hi, Stephen. This is Jason Gazulima.
How
are you doing?
How are you? I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Quick one. For me, it's sorry I joined a few minutes late, but for me it's the apparent delay in the the release of the CDF funds, because I think the expectation was they should have been released from the beginning of January. We're now in March, end of March, and I think only part of it has been released. So I would like to believe the money is there. It's just a question of reconciling and shifting it around. But my concern is going forward, constituency by constituency. I know there are all these committees, but do they all have the capacity to actually handle these funds? Do they know how to deal with them? How did it work in the past when we only had 1.6 million kwacha? Were things satisfactory, or did you have issues in certain constituencies where there were issues? And my question is, in the event that the constituency was failing to handle a small amount, how are they going to deal with the big amount? Is there actual capacity in these areas? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. The capacity is there. Of course, where people are always issues here and there. What I mean by capacity there, the people who handle those funds, actually the civil servants themselves. We have a director of finance in each setting. I don't know how they are called. Here we are called district treasurer at Chiwambo. So the money is deposited by or transferred by treasury from Ministry of Finance to these accounts at the council. And then the treasurer will actually announce that actually the CDF is sitting in the district. Then to say what's the delay, there is also this bureaucracy. I think you've seen this the guidelines for how you utilize the CDF, these committees and whatever. You have to identify projects. So the identification of projects should start, say, in October. Should have started October 2021 for projects for 2022. So that by the time it's January, already authority has been given by the minister. And then immediately the money should have been sent to the district or to the constituencies respective. Now, the issue is, like I already earlier, that this is the issues of the council to approve those projects and then send to the minister. That's where the delays comes in. You find that between January and now, they were just, WDCs were just identifying the projects, looking at the amounts which have now come. Because in 2021, they were just administering the 1.6. This time around, there's a 25.7, but the money for projects is somewhere around 15 million point something. So now they are dealing with those issues. Okay, we need to finish that clinic, we need to finish that school. So those are projects now that have been identified. When they identify those projects, it's not that immediately they'll start dispersing. No, they need to be approved by the Minister of Local Government and Road Development. That's when the authority is given to start dispersing that money. Even when it was going to be released in January, it should have been 25.7 up to today, because no one has been given authority yet until the council approved those CDF projects and they go to the minister for approval and then implementation. So that's where the whole thing comes in. That's those bureaucracies are the ones which delay all this. Otherwise, if it was just them, they sit and say, want to build the classroom there and whatever, it should have been already running. But they need the minister to approve first. That's what the guidelines say. The capacity to handle their funds, of course, it is the local authority, civil servants actually. I talked over the procurement processes. The procurement processes, the same way we do them, say, in a ministry, those are how they are done, even under the local authority. These projects will be approved by the minister. They'll come to the local authority, and the procurement officers will start the role of procuring. The BOQ done by the director of works and everyone else. Then they will be sent to the procurement office and they'll start procuring. If it's a tender, the authority, the public, like anyone of us, we're building a school there and whatever, everyone will bid and they will choose the committee, the procurement committee and whatever, they will choose who's the lowest bid and whatever, then they will award. If it's procurement or material, same stuff will happen. That's how it happens about this one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Just to add on, maybe this one, I think you are closer to the corridor of power. We just need to increase the manpower in the procurement office and the monitoring and evaluation. Otherwise, everything else is just a set.
Okay. So there's a question in the chat that says how much capacity building has undertaken within the ranks of those controlling this money to ensure that money goes to the intended purposes?
Like I said, we have very qualified members of staff. Director of Finance, maybe SCCA staff and whatever, Director of Planning, just like that, Director of Works, everything is done very well. My plea is that, like the issue elder brother Jason brought, the delay, we want, like I mentioned, just increase the numbers in the procurement processes and do a specialized procurement. I think that will move things very fast.
Mr. Gandiza, please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, I think when Mushanga was explaining about the zones, that depending on the constituencies, these committees are divided in zones. And these zones will come up with projects which they want to do, depending on the resources available. Now, I'm seeing a situation where these zones will come out with certain projects which will be above what may be allocated to them. What happens in that scenario? I'm seeing an issue of delays happening there, where these zones will choose projects which are above what may be allocated to them. I was thinking, I think it was going to be important that the money is allocated to these zones. They are aware of how much should be allocated to them, so that as they are planning on projects, they also take into account how much is available. I think this information probably is not coming out clearly. And if I hear, I think from the last meeting, the Secretary of the Treasury said these monies will not be dispersed at a go. They will be in phases. Again, there I see a problem because certain projects may want disbursement probably almost at a go. How are these issues going to be harmonized? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Nkandeza, for that question. Usually, even the constituencies like Katuva and Kembe can do a project together. So like building a youth development college and whatever. That's a huge undertaking. So for that in CDF, you would do a BOQ for that project and say, okay, how much can a constituency contribute? You do one project. Similarly, even in our smallest point now down there on the WDC, you're talking of a secondary school, which you maybe interface 2 or 3 zones. So we find that in that committee, when the committee sits, they will realize they're just the same people and in the same word. They will say, okay, instead of disintegrating these funds, let's just put the funds together and build up a secondary school which will interface maybe 4 zones. And that's how it works. Yeah. Because I'll give an example. Before I came into local government, we found that Katuva and Kembe had to put together some resources, try to do a school center, and land was found. Somehow it didn't go ahead. Some NGO came in and put up a duty, and I don't know other people who pursue on this Great North Road along Katuva 10 miles. There's a hill called Savannah. There's a built-on international there. That's a school training college for Chiwambo district. So they do bricklaying there and whatever. Yeah. So that those things actually they were just committees. When you bring up something which is going to interface a large area, you rather you pull the resources together and actualize that dream which you have. Mr. Gundaza talked about releasing funds according to, of course, that is much better because personally I feel it's much better. Look in the situation where we have these projects, say we have 10 of them, and they maybe just amount to 9 million. It's better we just disperse 9 million than 15 million. Because we will never know how that 5 million might be misused. That's why we hear of misapplying certain funds, because maybe people look at the excesses of funds in their control. So when you have these projects, you find that the BOQs amount to 9 million, and the resources for that particular constituency is 15 to do infrastructure. It's better just disperse according to the needs. That way, I think you will not see misapplying of these scarce resources actually.
Okay, so Mr. Mushanga, as we agreed earlier, the meeting was going to be a short one because we're trying to adopt this shorter format so people can have chance to go do other things with the rest of the day. So unless there's one last question, we could close this meeting and we'll put the recording on the chat. I mean, on the WhatsApp. Go ahead. Okay, Onward has a question.
Yes.
The honor, before you proceed, I've handed over the hosting to Professor Liswaniso, and he's going to close out the meeting on our behalf. Yeah, please go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead and done.
Okay, I was muted, I think.
Yeah.
Are you able to get me now?
Yes.
Okay. Honorable, how are you?
Fine, and how are you?
I'm fine.
It's good to hear from you.
I think most of the questions have been answered and asked, but my main concern now is that I think the planning now is more to the ground level, because more of the CDF funds are coming towards the constituencies than the previous times. But I'm sure now I'm sure you can pull all the resources. I mean, the human resource. I don't know if in the constituencies you have all those human resources that can really plan ahead of the budget. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mamba. Indeed, the planning is there. Of course, we want to plan what will work for ourselves. Of course, in your setting, you know your challenges we are facing, Mr. Mamba. So you plan, you see it as a community. You see, these representative of ours in the what we call zones. They're supposed to call a very big meeting where people are going to where people are going to bring in a lot of ideas in our setting, taking into account the challenges we are facing. That's why the zones, like where I stay here at the Mamba, there is a zone. So we sit and say, oh, we need a road. This road has to be done up to Mulovela, because we have all the farmers around this area and all of us are farmers. So need to do this road. That is a much considered review. Now, we are also looking at the challenge which we have come up with today, the free education one. But that our schools are now overwhelmed with enrollment. So now we all sit and see the challenges. Oh, our children are sitting on the floor, we need to buy this. Or we need to expand the classroom box. So those are the challenges we plan together as a community, and give these reports to our WDC members and take the committee. The committee will deliberate and approve. Then take the CDF committee, which will also deliberate and take to the council until they are approved by the minister. So that's how we do it. Otherwise, the planning is there, actually. The planning is very well solid. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stephen. Any other questions?
Yes, Professor.
I'm sorry, some of us came in late. We're still working, some of us. We're in the middle of the day, so we just had to run away from class and come and listen to you, Mr. Mushanga.
Thanks so much, Professor.
Otherwise, I guess the meeting has been going on well and recorded. So some of us that missed the beginning of this will catch up with what you've shared with us. And yeah, we just hope as Zambians, we just hope this runs smoothly, so that we see the intended results. Definitely, we need to see our people on the ground benefit from this. So we all, as Zambians, I think, hope for the best, and we just hope as you guys on the ground represent the people that are really affected by this poverty. So you guys need to really take these tasks very, very seriously. So thank you all very much for coming and we hope to continue meeting in our Santos group. So thank you so much, and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.